Bobby Buck Show, where we interview the up-and-coming artists, entrepreneurs, and movers and shakers. All right, y'all. Here we are today on the Bobby Buck Show on the podcast. And today, our topic is going to be about the Constitution. Was it written to include Black people or not? And I got I call them all specialists in each of their fields and everything. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get each of them a chance to introduce themselves, who they are with their own 30-second elevator pitch. So I'm going to start off first with, we go with OG Man.
Well, my name is Manuel Campito. In terms of the Constitution, I don't really feel that the Constitution was written for us or included us. I look at the 39 people that signed the Constitution, not one of them was Black. A lot of them were slave owners. So, of course, I don't figure the Constitution was written for us at all. I know about the Articles of Confederation, which was written prior to the U.S. Constitution. A lot of it is included in the Constitution as the first 10 copies of the first 10 articles of the Constitution are the Bill of Rights, or so-called Bill of Rights, that were included. So, and there's been a lot of articles that's been, or amendments, I say, that's been included in the Constitution for over the years, But no, I don't think the Constitution was written for us. And I believe that Black people, over the time, I could look back all the way through slavery. We had Black soldiers. You had Black soldiers that fought for the Confederate, and you had Black soldiers that fought for the Union. And everybody that fought for freedom. They didn't fight for no equal rights, no civil rights. They fought for their own freedom that was promised to them. So no, I do not think the Constitution was written for us, nor do I really think it includes us today. I still think that we're colonial subjects. We're second-class citizens in this country. But a lot of times we figure if we fight for the white man, he will include us. But it ain't been that way. We know soldiers that came back home from the war had to ride on the back of the bus. So no, it's not included us. That's my feeling.
All right. Well, I know you was ready to get into it, but I was mainly want to get an introduction going with everybody.
That's my introduction. That's my introduction. Yeah. Quit playing with it. Let's quit playing with it.
All right, Ted, you go for your next introduction.
I'm sorry?
All right, Ted, you introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm next. Hi, my hat right, man. I'm Ted Hayes. Some of you know who I am. I'm an activist, civil rights, homelessness activist. This is my 39th year since I went to Skid Row on purpose and stepped on the sidewalks for 8 years, purposefully on Skid Row sidewalks, and learned quite a bit about the future. And I prepared from those 8 years in sidewalk and then in Dome Village, I prepared for the future, which I am thankful to you, Bobby Buck, for maintaining this platform, because I'm glad to be here because I want people to know that there is a great future for us as a people, but we just got to look for it. But I agree with Brother G-Man that the Constitution was not written for us, nor for children, nor for women, and nor for a whole bunch of other folks that are now in this country. But what we do have in the Constitution is we have some, well, let me cut it to the quick. What I've learned from my ancestors and other peoples, when you're in captivity in the captor's land, like it or not, it's your responsibility to study that captor, study his ways, and outsmart him. And we'll talk about that.
All right. Next up is Mr. Brandon Ivy.
Thank you, Brother Buck, and it's an honor to be here with you guys. I've heard of Ted Hayes. I've heard of what he's done in the past, so it's an honor to be here with you guys. But my name is Brandon Ivy. I am a Morehouse graduate, class of '98. I'm the founder and CEO of Ivy League Crypto Academy. I teach crypto education for a living, especially for people of color to learn about the new financial system an economic system that we must know about so that we can participate in that. I believe that Bitcoin is freedom, that there's no barrier of entry, no matter what the color of your skin is, just your ability to learn. And unfortunately, I believe that people who look like us don't even know about it or how it exists. So I make it a point to try to teach and make aware of this new financial system. I also do not believe that the United States Constitution was written for, on behalf, or in the service of people of color. It only was written in the service of one entity, and that is the white European male. But we have had amendments to the Constitution that have tried to address these issues that we are still fighting for today. We can get into that later on.
All right, Melvin Ishmael Johnson.
Melvin Ishmael Johnson, Drama Stage Qumran, Mail Press, uh, working with writing a lot of books now in African American history. When I view the Constitution as an economic document. To understand the Constitution is to understand it as an economic document in relationship to the fact that they talk about the descendants they talk about the slaves and all that kind of stuff, but they disguise it with a lot of disguised language, etc., like that. Um, but the Constitution is mainly about the center point of the Constitution was about property, about chattel slavery, etc., like that. And we can get into that later on when we talk about that.
All right, and Ray.
Greetings, everyone. I'm honored to be here with you, gentlemen, and I'd like to share my thought with you. My name is Raymond Lewis. I am a white Autochthon, descendant of Choctaw Indians. And no, the Constitution wasn't made for dark colored carbon people. And I stand on who gave them that idea to write this Constitution, and where did they get a lot of this information from?
All right. Okay. Well, here we go. Well, I'm gonna do my best for
Can I just say something real quick? I forgot. I
Okay.
just
Yeah.
wanted to acknowledge all you OGs on this platform today. It's important that we gray-haired dudes let it show and let our young men know that it's good to live. They're so afraid to live in, to grow up to be just nothing. They look at their fathers and mothers, so they think, my body is new and young. I may as well use and party now, eat, drink, and be merry because tomorrow I'm gonna look like my daddy. And so we got a movement going on out here in Venice Beach where we call it great power. No matter what color, race you are, show your age. Be proud that God has allowed you to live this long. So that's all I want to say. Shalom and peace.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Take your time, Lil G. Take your time. You'll get there when you get there. All right. Just enjoy the walk. Okay.
I got
Real
it.
slow walk.
All right.
Brother Ted Hayes, you look just like my father.
I get that a lot from people.
Real talk. I got a picture. You look just like. Yeah.
That's Christ. That's Christ in me. Okay,
Yep.
that's Christ in me. Shine that light out, and it'll take on any character you want to take on. I'm honored that you would say something like that to me, my brother. Thank you so much. Because you're a good-looking brother.
As well as you.
I'm sorry, we digress.
All right. Then. So I'm here. I'm Bobby Buck. I'm gonna come up with my first question to get some things started, and then, like I said, we can go into some other areas that y'all already are ready to conversate about. But what was your first encounter with the idea that the Constitution might not fully include Black people?
Can I go with that?
Go ahead.
Can I take that first? Being that I'm amongst these giants, I'm a giant too. I think I'm the littlest of the great giants here. Well, yeah. Okay, the first time I really had to take a critical look at the Constitution is when I took a class with Professor Ely at LACC. Powerful brother, all love to him. I failed that class because I was on another thing when I went there, but It really, when I took that class and the discussions that we had about the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and all these other cases, it was. I'm gonna say this off the top. It wasn't meant for anyone other than they say they're white, but uh, not the native. It wasn't for the native people. It wasn't for the black or Indian or anything. It was for the ones. It was for the Masons who draw that up. Who understood that language. The lay people didn't understand that. Until I would say later on down the line when certain political figures want to lobby for positions in the South, and they had to go into these South in these back home places where a lot of races and black and white people races at, and they had to get these two people to come together to vote for this person so we can change the roads to bring in schools. But that mentality of the people there didn't want to come together with the so-called blacks or the native people to bring this person into office to change the way they're living. So they stayed like that. Hence, other part of the country started developing, and then the South was still back. That's just one idea that when we ever discussed it, I came about the Constitution, and it wasn't really for us. It's a lot more involved in that too.
Okay. All right. Who's
Well,
next?
you said something a minute ago. Go back to what you just said. Something about they didn't know it. It wasn't for the layperson. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Whoever wrote the Constitution, them white racists, all those cats, Europeans to be identified, and the Masons. You said that they knew that the average layperson could not understand it,
right.
because most people did not know how to read. They were not literate, were they? That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
On
Anybody
that same note, like what Ted was just saying, we look at the signers of the Constitution: George Washington, John Landon, Nicholas Gilman, Nathaniel Gorman, Rush King, William Sampson. I mean, come on, man. All these was white guys. They were property owners. Okay? They were property owners. And the other thing about it, they were criminals. They rebelled against Britain, against England. They were criminals. If they hadn't won the Revolutionary War, they'd have been executed. So we need to realize that they were criminals. And I say that not to be disparaging, but the fact that anytime we try to make a move in this country, we trying to label it as criminals. Even look at the Black Lives Matter movement, or the Black Panther Party, or the Civil Rights movement. Anytime we try to make any kind of moves, we're labeled as criminals. So the whole government, even the Constitution, that electoral system, come on, all the type of things that they've done put us at a disadvantage anyway with the Constitution. And now you see with the Constitution, you see the Supreme Court doing what they want to do. So when you talk about the Constitution, the division of all these different branches of government, they're doing what they want to do.
Okay.
You got something to share on that?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that the first time I was aware, I was born in Compton, California, but my parents moved out to the Valley. And so when I was in school, I went to school where I was predominantly maybe one or two black kids in the class. And it might have been maybe 5th or 6th grade when we were studying about America being created and putting on a pedestal, the Christopher Columbuses, the George Washingtons, the Thomas Jeffersons as heroes, and with the Declaration of Independence. And I was smart enough to know, because of my parents that would taught me actual history, where I would question, I would say, well, wait a second. The Declaration of Independence, where so-called all men are created equal, there was still slavery after that, right? And the teacher would say yes. I said, so how is it that you can write a constitution claiming that all men are created equal when people who look like me were not being created equal or treated equally at the time? Maybe 10 years old, 9 years old at the time, and I was labeled a troublemaker for asking the question and showing the hypocrisy of the document, and that it did not reflect all of us as they wanted us to be seen. And then the only response I remember at that time that they come back with, well, there's been amendments to the Constitution. I said, well, there shouldn't have needed to be amendments if what they were saying to begin with is true. So what you're telling me is at that time, it all came down to property, that people who look like me, even women, were not considered men, or the have the right to delegate law or in engage in any form of political representation. Because that was the whole thing. We don't want representation, taxation without representation. And so that was my first, before I got to constitutional law in high school and college, first time I was exposed to the Constitution and not representing us.
All right, all right. Mel, you
Uh,
want to chime in?
yeah. I guess my first time is, I come up in a totally segregated society in the Mississippi Delta, Greenville, Mississippi, right in the heart of the Mississippi Delta. And I guess I realized that is when we got our history class, and I come across the concept of three-fifths of a man that they embedded in the Constitution to disguise the what was happening in slavery, and wanted to be able to use it as a political tool. So I guess that was the time when I realized that it was something different uh, uh, with this particular document, with the Constitution. Hmm.
All right. Okay.
On
Yeah.
that,
Not,
Bobby.
yes.
On that note, I was just thinking about it. I never did good in school. I was kicked out of school all the time. Elementary, junior high, high school. It wasn't until I went to prison that I read the Constitution, because I went to the law library. And I was trying to fight my case, and I realized that a lot of words I didn't really understand, like search and seizure. I never heard no search and seizure until I got arrested, but I didn't really know what it meant. So, I'm going through the law library, and I began to read the Constitution. And even when I got to the jury, you had a right to a jury trial by your peers. And I realized I didn't have no jury by my peers, but the white people on there. And I understood what the word peers was and how they would play games, the word games with us. I know you're not my peer, okay? So I didn't learn about the Constitution until I went to prison and started reading. And then, like the brother said, I loved history. When I started reading history. And that's what started to reveal a lot of stuff about the Constitution that, like I said, they was criminals. These were criminals. They came over to America under the English banner, and then they turned on them. Okay? So I started understanding that this whole document was hypocrisy. It was hypocrisy. And even today, when I hear black politicians talking about how we defending the Constitution, I'm wondering where they went to. Where they been at over the last 40, 50 years, 100 years. Because the Constitution wasn't meant for us. How can we defend it?
All right, all right. Anybody want to pick up back on that?
I first learned about the Constitution when I was in elementary school. I went to segregated school, of course, and they taught us the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, the Declaration of Independence. In a black school, I learned these things, and then in my teenage years, I was doing some work with some militants in my hometown of Aberdeen, Maryland, and I learned from some brothers then, some militant brothers then, that the Constitution was not written for the slave people, women, or anybody else, but it was written for basically white European property owners, and um, and they in fact said, and I kind of halfway agree with them today, looking over history and the way things have been going in this country, and what's called republic, not democracy. They before they said that unless you own property or has some sort of financial or real estate interest, you cannot vote. You're not allowed to vote. Period. And then, of course, they later, decades later, they changed that and made it allowable for anybody to vote. Of course, except for black people and others, but any white person of age could vote. In my opinion, that was the beginning of the downfall of this capitalist country. They should have left it that way because now all you got to do is offer somebody a phone, a meal, something, and you get their vote. And that's not the way, I don't think that's the way democracy or republic is supposed to work, but that's okay. It's part of the learning process. So, yeah, it was not written for us. Absolutely right. They knew that themselves. And they say it. They admit it. They flat out admit it wasn't right, that they were wrong. It's a matter of what are we, the captives, are going to do about it. It's one thing to keep saying Massa is wrong. Massa is wrong. Massa is wrong. This is why Massa is wrong. Yeah, we get it. Massa know he's wrong. But how do we deal with Massa in reality of where we are now?
Right. Okay.
I want to pick on what Brother Hayes, you just said right there about the ability to vote based on you owning property.
Mm-hmm.
And when Reconstruction happened right after, at the time of Lincoln being assassinated.
1865.
Yes, sir. And we were promised 40 acres and a mule, which meant you were going to be giving former slaves access to property, which meant ownership, which meant land rights, which meant the ability to vote. And then that was rejected and rescinded. And so now you have a bunch of freed so-called American citizens now, because of the 13th Amendment, that are not property owners, that don't hold any titles or land. So therefore, they don't have the right to vote. It was built in that way. So I just wanted to add that on there for what you said, Brother Hayes.
Yeah, and that's true. And maybe, Bobby, in the future we could discuss this whole voting process on another podcast in the future to kind of clarify some things. But the most important thing to me, it goes back to what brother the one I look like his daddy.
Big Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis.
Yeah, Ray. Back to what he said. That is for us, Choctaw slave descendants and Jim Crow survivors. For us, that is the key element in where we are. We are laymen, laypersons. We are illiterate. Right now, according to school administrators, I've talked to several of them, and they say that from kindergarten to collegiate university, average out reading literacy. We as a people have about a fourth grade reading literacy, average of people. And some people, oh, that's horrible. I said, oh, that's wonderful. Why? Because there was a time it was against the law for us to read, especially if you got caught reading the Bible. That was a death sentence. So my movement, what we're doing over here, is we are working on plans to take the truth that we have learned and boil it down to a fourth grade level understanding. And we're going to use the computer and other technologies, and we're planning a movement that will sweep the nation around this thing you see in the back of me right now. And that is work. Should go like that. Yeah,
Right.
that right there is a very key component in what we are doing, and you recognize what's in its background. But we'll talk about that more later. But I'm done. It's about ignorance. The issue is ignorance, man. That's the bottom line. Ignorance. People don't know. They don't know.
On that topic right there,
Yeah.
on that point right there, I agree with Ted Hayes. 'Cause I see it today. I go into different organizations, and people come to these organizations with no knowledge, but want to vote. But want to vote on what you're talking about.
Well, I'll tell you what you're talking about, too.
You know what I mean? They don't even know what the issues are. And so when you get a bunch of illiterate people voting, you gonna have a that's what it is. Like we got it. I mean, when I was in the Black Panther Party, we had political education classes every day. Every day. Our community is not politically educated, nor do they know history. But our leaders, and I think Ted for what he's doing, they're not trying to educate nobody.
Well, I should.
How you gonna vote and you don't even know what the Constitution say? I don't believe in letting people vote that's ignorant.
Okay, wow, that's a very interesting thought coming from you, GG, man. Because some folks would really take issue with you on that. You saying that that you're segregating the population and you're taking their freedom away. Every person should have a right to vote. One man, one vote.
I
And
don't, I, I, I
but
don't
your
believe that.
argument, if I'm
I
hearing you
don't believe
clearly,
that.
if I'm hearing you clearly, your argument is that why should we let ignorant people
Yeah, I want to know that. Give me the reason for that one. I need to know that. Straighten that up for me. I need to know, Ted. Straighten out why I got an ignorant person I know that's dumb as hell that's gonna go vote on some stuff. That's why you got a bunch of Trump people and all kind of people, Biden people, Kamala Harris people. Y'all don't even know who these people is. You know what I mean? You know what? I'm gonna tell you another thing. We vote like Obama.
Uh-oh.
I talked to Bobby. I talked to a lot of people. Some of us ain't voted till we got 40 and 50 years old. The first time we ever voted in our whole life, cause we was ignorant. Cause we was ignorant. You know what I mean? We didn't know nothing.
Right.
And now we after 50 years, I'm 50 years old. I love Obama because he black and I'm gonna vote. That don't make no sense to me.
I got a question for you guys on that topic, because this was a big topic in the 1800s or the 1900s about an entire population of people that never had access to education, did not know how to read, and didn't even understand what they were reading, have the comprehension of it. So there was this whole the talented tenth. You had to have the elite class that was able to determine the well-being and the rights of those who could not do for themselves, until we reached a point where there was not only equal opportunity or equal access to education, but equal access to quality education. Now, there was a movie that came out called Starship Troopers that talked about the only people who were considered citizens were those who passed a certain test, and then once they passed that test, were considered a citizen and gained the right to vote. So this is a controversial topic, even on the right and the left. If you look at those that would vote for the Republican side, for the MAGA, those on the left side, based on race or color, who should legally have the right to vote, and should there be a qualifier? Because right now, the Republicans use certain qualifiers as a way to suppress the vote with certain ID and this and that. But if that's the case, should there be a qualifier to have the right to vote? Or is it one man, one vote, based on the fact that you were born as a natural born citizen of the United States? I'll leave that to you, brothers.
I'll say this here, Brandon. I'm gonna ask you this question. You teach some classes in certain area. Brother Hayes, you got a movement going on. Melvin, you got drama stage. Do you let any ignorant people come into your group and start voting?
Well,
Well,
like the military says.
I just want to know. Could you answer? Give me a yes or no. If somebody just walk into your group,
No.
ignorant as hell, do you start letting them vote?
I'm gonna comment on that.
Yeah, Ray.
Yeah, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take that person by the hand, and I'm gonna help them, and I'm trying to help them and try to teach them so they can vote on it and stand on their own.
Do you let them vote right then and there?
I'm gonna tutor them something. If they can hold on to that, they can vote.
Then you gonna tell them what to do there, basically.
No,
Pretty much, you gonna educate them. You gonna do a Trump thing. You gonna tell them what you want them to know. Then go ahead and vote. Now you got the information now.
But I'm just saying, I'm not the one. I'm not the one to say that just because a person is that kind of way, they ain't got no rights.
I agree with you. I'm just saying, everybody know me in the brigade. You ain't coming up in here voting. You ain't even coming up here voting. Till you in the brigade, till you learn what's going on, you don't get no vote. Ain't nobody voting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, you can't even go to the Army without taking a test, or the Marines. You can't even go to the Boy Scouts and just get in there. No.
That is a universal principle that all people have practiced throughout history, even in the tribal cultures. You don't just walk in and expect to be given equal opportunities at what's going on. You got to earn your way in. That's leadership, but that's participation. You got to have ownership. And so I don't know, brothers, but what's going to happen to this country, I'm not sure. But I think, as brother said, at some point, there's this conversation is going to have to hit the national debate. Do we make an amendment to receive one man, one vote, everybody can vote no matter what, and put in something else like property ownership, or you got to demonstrate that you are somehow involved in society, being responsible, that this society means something to you, that you're going to protect it, or will there be some
Yes.
kind of compromise? But the conversation is going to have to happen if America is to survive.
Here's
Now,
So
my
I
thought.
agree with
I like to say this. Well, the reason I think the voting, if understood, is so important from a historical point of view. You have to understand what happened after Reconstruction. When the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment came into play, and the descendants of the chattel slaves of America, it opened up for a minute. But what happened is the violent forces that came
Teach,
into play
teach.
that made it dangerous to
To
even
read.
consider
Yeah.
voting, because what you got to remember, after Reconstruction, 90% of the descendants of the chattel slaves of America was in that Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, southern area. That's where we were. And we had the numbers. And the Europeans, the whites, they were a minority, and they had to keep the the descendants of the chattel slaves of America and their supporters from utilizing the vote. Now that's one thing that happened. Now the brother mentioned earlier about the talented tenth. Now that was one of the biggest mistakes that we made, and we're still paying for that, because what happened is that Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, he developed the concept of the talented tenth, where if 10% of the people got educated, you would reach back for the other 90%
Yeah,
and
right.
elevate them. But what happened is it
Tell us
was
what happened, brother. Tell us what happened.
the type of education you got, and those talented tenth were receiving a westernized education, and that made them align themselves with the power structure. That's what we have going on today. And when I was coming up in the Mississippi Delta, and the brother that come from Morehouse in the 30s, our principal was named G.P. Maddox. He came from Morehouse in the 30s, and he came to the Mississippi Delta and set up the historical high school, Coleman High School, that I went to. And he brought the name of the football team and the colors, the Tigers and the maroon and white and all that kind of stuff. But what he also brought with him is he brought the Greek fraternities, the capital, the capitals, and up until that time, the blacks, our people have been controlled by the Prince Hall Masons in these areas and in the pulpits and all that kind of stuff. See, and they replaced that. This is where we got to come to grips with right now when we look at the group that call themselves the Divine Nine, these fraternities and sororities, and we forget that the brother wrote the book Soul and Legacy, and he pointed out in the book how damaging these fraternities are to the black community. And,
Indeed.
and we seem like we didn't forgot about that. That was in 1954 when he wrote this book. But when you look at all of our leadership, especially in the southern states, but in the cities too, they are connected to these Greek fraternities. And we're going to have to come to grips with what the brother said in that book. And then one more other thing. Just before the South fell, when the Union conquered Richmond, Virginia, and Abraham Lincoln he came down to Richmond, and all the black people ran out, and they worshiping him like he was God and all like that. And people forget what Abraham Lincoln said then. You never hear that. He said, you know, I am not, you thank God, don't thank me. And he said, now you are now as free as anybody else in this country. And if anybody get in front of your freedom, you take your weapons and your bayonets and you teach them that you are just as free as they are. And see, when we talk about Lincoln, we talk about everything about that. He didn't say
Of what
nothing
he said right there. You're
about
right.
violence and all of that. He told you you've been fighting in the Civil War, the blues and all that kind of stuff like that. Anybody get in your way, take your weapons and teach them that you are free. See,
My brother, to add on to what you just said right there, a lot of people don't read. A lot of people, as the other brother, Brandon said, they read, but they can't comprehend what they read. But right there, the first law that really addressed the chattel slaves, the Emancipation Proclamation, the first law, right in that law, he tells you, black people, former slaves, you take your weapon and you defend yourself. People
yeah,
don't talk about that much
Yeah,
concerning
yeah,
Lincoln.
that's true.
He
But
may as well have been a Black Panther.
When the Black Panther Party picked up their guns, what did they do? See,
They
they
fought
say
as a
one
black
thing,
community.
they would say one thing, but then they do another thing. See,
Oh,
we like you say about reading. See, we don't read because we read. We would know that the American government broke 500 treaties with the Indians.
Right.
500 treaties. Why do you think they would do a treaty with us and keep it? What makes you think they would create an amendment or anything and keep it? That's what I'm talking about, being ignorant. We come out of Abraham Lincoln. We got the right to vote. The Ku Klux Klan take back over the South through violence. We didn't pick up the gun. What happened to the Buffalo Soldiers or the 54th Regiment? They send them out west to be the Buffalo Soldiers and fight the Indians. Okay? We pick up the gun against everybody but the person who is our enemy. Because he has a way of tricking our brains, man. He trick our brains with all kind of stuff. Why you think rap is such a big thing today? Everybody want to be a rapper. We don't want to be no scientist, no engineer. We don't want to create no cities. We built little black Wall Street. What did they do? Burnt it down. Did we fight back? So no, there's a lot of hypocrisy in this Constitution. And I say we need to write our own Constitution. Like Ray said, why did they write? Who gave them the right to write a Constitution, include us in there? Because most people don't know that America is just a corporation. It's only a corporation. It's not God. But black folks think it's God.
Can I segue in there, OG? You okay? Eric, brothers, y'all saying Brother Johnson, everything y'all saying is like right on point, you know. And I'm thinking we should take this different perspective of looking at it, like Ted Hayes, you were saying that got to get some kind of recognition, right? I see in 2010 there was a lot of stuff going on. They like pulled a cover back about all the treaties and stuff that America and the Masons was entrenched, and America was bankrupt. And some guy came in and did some kind of flag thing. He made the flag in order to, I don't know what happened, but in 2010, America was bankrupt, right? And to keep it going, some citizen came and did something with the flag to make it keep going. But anyway, it was exposed that the United States of America was corrupt, and the UN came in, right? This when they started talking about how to bring in true justice for the American society, because it's not happening within the United States. We need international recognition. That's where I think we'll get some kind of some muscle to hold people accountable for their wrongdoings. So like America, it took all the Indian stuff, which is us, because you got to understand, all people with our color, if Indians was already here, they looked at like us, because that's what America means, copper colored people. And everybody, all you gentlemen are copper colored. We are the original people here. So when these other people did come here, they wasn't like I don't think that they were completely pale. They looked at someone like us because they knew there was some kind of something went down that took this land right up under our nose and our history. The Pope sent out a edict saying, apologizing for what's been done to our people, but and all this is in the UN. Then the UN come up with this other thing about the international decade of African descent, right? It's three categories: justice, recognition, and development. Nobody's not talking about these things. It's a lot. Like you were saying, people don't read. It's not that I don't think people don't read. Is that I don't think they're exposed to the right stuff to read, man.
What we're doing in our
You know,
movement,
and
recognizing what we're doing in our movement, recognizing those very points, is we're creating in people, especially young people, a desire to read. They have to want to read. If you don't want to read, you're not gonna read. That's how I learned to read. I learned to really read in the seventh grade. I started reading comic books. Comic books. Batman, not Batman, but I can stand Batman. But Spider-Man, the Hulk, the Fantastic Four. I wanted to know what them cats were saying because it looked interesting. So I began to read very simply. And by, let's see, February that year, I was a proficient reader in the seventh grade. And then I want to read more.
oh,
And I read. And see, when I graduated from high school, I didn't go to college. I went to the library. I went to, hold on, please. I went to the library and I went to the basement of the library and I studied antiquity and governments and society and those and philosophies and the various religions and built what I wanted. And so what we're doing is we're creating an environment where young people and others are going to want to read because we're exposing power that has been hidden within us for quite a while.
I wanna say
Brother
something.
Ted Hayes,
Ted said,
you hit on
comment.
something. I'm going to say one thing, and I'd like to leave. Brother Ted, you hit on something. Okay, about reading. Yes, I never graduated through. I never graduated through high school, but I read through. When I was in prison, I read a lot, and I took my test, and I failed still. But what came back is that I read at a college level. So I had really good reading comprehension. I had very good reading comprehension. In that, I started looking at, okay, for the simple fact, I think we as a people should start looking at how people are start describing us. All right. Like for one, you can look at this form called the SF 181. It's the form of race and ethnicity. It's got, black, white, and everything all in there. And if you look at all five of them, if you look at four of them, they're pretty precise and it explains who they are. But then when you get to black and African American, it's so disrespectful. I'm like, any wealthy to do or educated person would say something about this, but they're not. And when I bring it up, people don't really want to say nothing about it. If you look at it, it says, I'm gonna just read it. I memorize it. It says, Black African American, a person having origin of any racial groups of Africa. That don't make no sense. But all the other ones is being defined. I don't know if you got that form. I can send Bobby. I can send you a copy of it. And maybe it is probably is off topic, but I'm. It's all about semantics. It's about syntax. It's about wordings. If we don't, and English language has got us under a spell. If we don't look at the syntax and the narrative, what these words mean and what they're talking about, and don't stand up and get a good definition of it that we all can agree upon, we're not gonna go nowhere because we won't keep battling. And I kind of see kind of where we're going now because we got different ideas, but we want to help each other. But it's kind of I don't know. It's something there.
Okay,
it's the
Brandon.
words. English language is on a spell.
Okay, I'll let Brandon pick it. Pick it back on it.
Well, I want to go right back to what OG man was talking about when he's talked about America as a corporation. So I always believe, I always say, education is key. Education is everything. And when you look at it from the words of how this nation was founded, how it rebelled against the British Empire, the Declaration of Independence, all of that was transactional. It was based on the fact that these, as he said, these criminals believed that they were being taxed unfairly without representation, that it all came down at the end of the day to money. And when we look at the advancements that as African Americans we've had in this nation on fighting for our rights, it always came down to not necessarily color, but the dollar. How were they impacted economically? The bus boycotts in the 60s, civil rights movement, everything comes down to economics. When you release the slaves, what did this country do? They went back and said, we are going to give money back to the slave owners for their loss of property. We're going to give them tax benefits. We're going to give them tax breaks. We're not going to allow the former slaves that they had to own property to compete. We're going to have a system in place where they got to come back to that same land that they were slaves on as indentured servitudes. So now we've got decades more of poverty in our own nation, our own people, pushed down the road, and still no education happening for these people to even know the rights that they have. So there was no difference in slavery and indentured servitude. So if we want to have some change, we've got to tackle not only education, but we've got to tackle how can we have an economic movement in our people where the dollar at the end of the day overrides their racist thoughts, that the system that they've designed to be in their place is no longer, let me just a sidebar on this. When we see the MAGA movement that's happening right now, that they feel that their leader is being unfairly treated in the justice system, a system that they designed and created to hold us back, is now holding them accountable. So what do they want to do? Change the rules. Let's let's suspend the Constitution. Let's be a dictator. Let's make sure that as we are now becoming minorities, and over the next decades, as the color of us rises, and I'd love to hear from Brother Hayes on the 14th Amendment about who is considered a citizen, immigration coming into place, with more people of color having the right to vote because they were born in America. All of that comes into place. But at the end of the day, the dollar is what moves everything. So I just wanted to put that in there. Education and finances is how we're going to overcome this.
Very well spoken.
Yeah, I would like to.
Ted Hayes. Go ahead, Melvin.
Go ahead.
Please, Mr. Melvin, you go right ahead, sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah, what I was gonna mention is what Brother Ivy mentioned about the economics, and I like to just point out in the 30s, after the collapse of the economy, you had people like Du Bois, Paul Robeson, Langston Hughes, etc. They wanted to develop a national Black history theater company situated in 24 areas of the United States. And the United States government destroyed that because they thought it was too many communists involved in that. But what I want to point out is what was happening in the 1950s that affects us right now. We were coming up to what they call the school desegregation case, Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954. And the white power structure in the South, which really controls the whole political apparatus in the whole United States, they come up with two organizations that a lot of people don't know about. One was called the White Citizens Council. That was 1952, to take over, to rule, to manage the KKK. And then you had the Sovereignty Commission, which was like a spy organization that spied upon all of the leaderships and all that kind of stuff like that. and they had four major plans. They had a point. They number one, they needed to get to cut down on the black population in the South. So they drove a lot of the blacks to the cities and stuff like that, the cities where we have now to dilute their power. Also, they wanted to set up segregated schools, private schools, because they were no way in the world, even to this day, they didn't want to go with school desegregation and all that kind of stuff. And you still got these private schools that's still segregated down south. And then they were going to boycott any black, wealthy black, white, or any like that that supported the school desegregation, et cetera, like that. So it's important to understand these important points that happened in the 50s. But now I also want to go back to the point that I mentioned earlier. Don't underestimate the problem that we in now have a lot to do with the shift from Scottish Rite Masons controlling the black community being overtaken by the Greek fraternities that we have. When you look at when you look at right now, all of your mayors, your black mayors, these small cities, the big cities where we at right now, you're gonna have somebody from these Greek fraternities that's the mayor, et cetera, like that. LA, New York, Chicago, you go over there. So you got to come back to what the brother said in the book, Stolen Legacy. If the major problem that we got right now is that we have allowed these Greek fraternities, et cetera, like that, to take over our community, and they don't have their vested interest is caught up with the latter part of the captain's power structure. That's what we're dealing with right now. I just want to mention that.
Bobby, how much time we have left?
Okay. I was getting ready to say we're going to be winding down, so we can do like a little closing argument, so we can pick this up again, and also we can work on some other topics and stuff too down the road.
Can you hear me, Bobby? I know you can't see me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can y'all hear? Can y'all hear OG man?
Can you hear me?
All right.
I just want to respond to what Ray said about the UN. I can't think of the lady name that's over the UN, man. She got a black woman in the UN that's head of the UN for the United States. She's voted against everything in Palestine, all that stuff. We've been in the UN for decades. So it's not like black people ain't been in the UN. Our case should be in the UN. We shouldn't even be going to the U.S. government. We should be in the UN. That's for our human rights. All that civil rights stuff, I don't even want no civil rights. I want my human rights. That's what I want. You know what I mean? They tell you you're a citizen because that's what they can tell you. You're a little kid. You don't know that. You grow up, you go to school, or you're a citizen. You're not. Yeah, okay. You're not understanding. Then like what you said, Melvin, about the theater. Because the Greek colleges, all that kind of sorority. Because we like to imitate them. Everything we've been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years is imitating our European conquerors. That's what we be doing. So we never wrote no real African. I mean, I looked at things like Spike Lee and all. Why we don't even make no pictures of Africa? Why don't we don't even make no movies of Africa? We got all these black directors and.
I thought that was a movie. Black
that Panther. Was one, but that really wasn't Africa. That really wasn't Africa. That was just, Black Panther was a good movie. You know what I mean? But it wasn't Africa.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? And like some of my Muslim brothers, that was a great movie. We ought to try to be like what do they call it? What's the name of the city?
Wait. Didn't they just make another movie recently about a black queen in Africa?
Yeah.
I don't know about the black queen, but I'm even like
in Africa, right? A warrior woman.
The warrior queen. I seen it. I seen the warrior queen. I don't know if that was true, but it was a warrior queen.
Excuse me. I don't go to movies, but I'm just pointing out that there are some movies out there. It's not completely whitewashed. I don't think, is it, my brothers?
Well, when you got like 2% of 100%, I think it's whitewashed. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You get 2%, 2%, and I'm gonna tell you another thing. It's like a Superfly. Like black people, they only like killing white people in movies. See. We make a movie killing a gang of white people. We be happy. We come out the movie, But when it comes to reality, we ain't gonna do nothing. The police pull up, we get quiet as hell. You know, and so, and then we try to imitate everything. While the Europeans are trying to imitate us. Look at rap went all over the world. Our way of dressing go all over the world. But then we'll turn around and look at W.D. Du Bois. I mean, what's his name? I can't think of his name right now. The one that taught himself how to read in slavery, Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass. So about reading, he was a slave and learned how to read. So I don't have no excuse for people. Like you said, you went to the library. I spent a lot of time in the law library, but even now I go to the library. You know what I mean? People don't want to learn how to read because a lot of people.
That's where, gentlemen, we're almost out of time, Bobby.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I think that if this is a good panel. I think we should come back because we
Yeah, I
never
believe
really
so too.
talked the
Yeah.
Constitution that much. We spent a lot of time talking about what's wrong. I want to talk about what we're going to do, the reality. What
That can be
realistic.
part two. Part
Yeah,
two.
you
I
get
like
part
that.
two. Yeah. Yeah.
What are we gonna do? That's part two.
And I want to share with y'all what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'll share what I'm doing.
Hey,
Yep. Just
There
all
we go.
share.
That sounds like a plan. I think we came together, got this going. So, and also, hey, y'all, people, y'all seeing this? This is real, raw, and uncut. We're gonna have to come up with a segment. So all of us together come up with a segment for this. We can all just come back and do it again.
Do we get
I would like to come back.
closing comments?
I would like to come back, brothers.
Do we get closing comments?
Yeah, we get some closing comments. So go ahead. You started off, Mel.
No, I'm sorry. Okay, I just want to be quickly mention that on December the 17th, 1951, Paul Robeson and William Patterson took the United States before the UN and accused them of attempted genocide against the descendants of the chattel slaves of America. And for that, both of them paid a steep price for that. And that document documented 237 cases against the descendants of the chattel slaves of America, lynching, burning up soldiers in the uniform, and all that kind of stuff like that. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And then before I leave, you mentioned Frederick Douglass. Keep in mind that Frederick Douglass became a constitutional scholar. He broke away from William Lloyd Garrison because William Lloyd Garrison, he thought the Constitution was a satanic document. But Frederick Douglass come to the conclusion that the Constitution had within it, because of the power structure, used all of these disguised language to hide slavery. Frederick Douglass felt that within the Constitution, it held the potential freedom or the direction that the descendants of the slaves should move in. He foresaw like the 13, 14, 15 Amendment. He was one of the driving forces behind that. So keep that in mind about Frederick Douglass.
All right,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you. All right, Brandon Ivy, closing comments.
Yeah, let's bring it back to the Constitution. So I think we all agree that the Constitution was not written for us. It wasn't written by us, but we are American citizens, and we have had amendments to include us. The lack of knowledge, the lack of knowing what the Constitution says, will maintain that we remain as slaves, because how can we practice the law if we don't even know the law, if we don't even know our rights? I love the idea that the talk about who should have the right to vote. The ignorant, the educated, who says who's educated, what type of test? That's another topic. I still believe that economics and education is our way out. But if you go back, for every Frederick Douglass, you had a Booker T. Washington. For every Martin Luther King Jr., you had a Malcolm X. So should we try to work within the system or create a system of our own through any means necessary? So these are good topics that we need. But at the end of the day, the one thing that we can control as a community today is not them putting their boot on our necks or the Constitution. Is how are we educating our own community, our children, and them knowing their rights based on without us having to send them to school. So I go back to education, and that's what I do. And so I'm looking forward to coming back on a panel with you brothers and talking more.
All right, OG man, closing with comments.
I agree. Education is going to be key, to understanding the Constitution and whether it's a hypocrisy document or whether it's something that we can really use to our benefit. We have proven throughout history that we can achieve things. You know, we had Black Wall Street. You know, I even look at some of the politicians that were there doing reconstructions and how they talked about the black politicians were like baboons. Okay, so I think education is very important, and I think moving forward, our people can no longer imitate our oppressor. We can't keep doing or trying to imitate our oppressor because capitalism is not going to work for us. We need to learn how to share, and sharing ain't in the Constitution, and it's not in capitalism. That's why we can't get a lot of things done because the system do not want to share. Listen, we talk about reparations. Reparations turn into like a joke. Every year I see something come up, reparations. Okay, show you how prejudiced the system is. If you gave every black man, woman, and child in America $10 million, that still don't make up for reparations, but just give them $10 million, what do you think they're going to do with it? Boost the economy. But they're so prejudiced, so racist, they won't even do that. That's my comment.
All right. Ray Lewis, final comment.
Yeah, Constitution, no, not for us. I stand with my toxin and standing process, and I write my own constitution outside of this corporation.
All right. Ted.
As long as we are captive in this man's land, you better learn what his book's about. You better learn his tactics. Because if you don't, all you're going to do is just keep complaining about how bad he is. He know he bad. And then if all you're going to do is talk about how bad he is, then he's going to take that and continue to do you bad. But the day that we begin to educate ourselves on who we are, on the power that has been bequeathed to us in the Constitution, in the Emancipation Proclamation, and the Triad Amendments of the 13th, 14th, and 15th, and the 1861-62 Confiscation Act, and the Anti-Ku Klux Klan Act of the 1870, 72, 73, etc., we are lost. And you got to think about this a little bit. You know, sometimes people like to hide things right in front of you so that you don't see it. And I'm weary of people say, don't read this, don't read that. Why? Because you're not in it. And I began to get suspicious, and I began to look into the Constitution. I realized some stuff, y'all, and I hope to share this with y'all in the future that will help us to move forward in the land of our captivity and become the free men that we're supposed to be. So I'm not too much into talk about how bad the man is. I've done that most of my life. The man knows he's bad. We need to show the man how to get him food off of us. But most importantly, the last thing I want to say, most importantly, more than the man, we need reparations and healing among ourselves. Because if we don't love and respect ourselves, why should anybody else? And that's true no matter what color you are. You don't love yourself, ain't nobody else gonna love you, man. So we our souls need to be healed from the wounds of self-inflicted pain.
Oh yeah.
I'm on the next podcast, OGs.
Yeah, one more thing.
Power going now.
Oh yeah, one more thing.
Thank you.
One more thing.
Yeah, go. I'm back, y'all.
Okay. Ted, let them know what you got coming up on June 2nd.
If they want to participate on June 2nd, well, I don't know if you have. You know what? Maybe not, Bobby, because we only have but a couple of seconds here, and I don't want to create any confusion because it's pretty controversial what we're doing. You know, it's cutting edge, man, and I don't want to start a whole nother conversation and maybe get misunderstood as to what my strategy is and what I'm doing.
Okay,
and I don't want to do that right now. But
I'm interested.
Soon, y'all gonna hear about it one way or the other. You will hear about what we can ready to do on June the 2nd. Now I'll say this much to you: if you want to know what it is, my phone number is 424-248-4219. You call me, and we'll talk privately offline what it is. And if it doesn't resonate with you, don't hate me. Just go about your business.
We love you, Ted. We love you. You know, we love you. We love you. Ain't no haters on this one here. Ain't no haters on this one.
I'll make sure I get you the number. Get everybody the number that's on here.
Yeah,
I'll make sure I get
call me, brothers. We'll talk.
Yeah. All right, then.
Bobby,
all right.
Thank you so much for doing this, brother. We acknowledge you, and we support you, and we salute you for allowing us this platform. Right, brothers, OGs?
Yes,
sir. Yes, sir.
That's
Oh
hard
yeah.
work to do, Bobby. That's not easy what you're doing. It's hard work, man.
Oh well. Hey, between all of y'all are the ones that help push me to keep me going, keep me motivated to do what I do. So, and I'm much appreciated that all of y'all took y'all time out to come be on here today. And we're
No
gonna get it
problem.
again. We're gonna set up again in the near future, y'all. So y'all get ready for it. We don't have a segment name for this yet. That's how fresh this is. Wait till we come
At
back
least
with it.
before the election, Bobby. We got to do one before the election.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
we're gonna do it very, very soon, very soon. So, hey, all right, y'all, we out of here and peace
All
out for
right.
right now.
Thanks for attending the Bobby Buck Show.